Okay, so it's like everybody's giving me a thumbs up. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ray Lutz. That's R-A-Y-L-U-T-Z, and I'm with Citizens Oversight. You may be able to see the banner over here. We are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization that has been working to improve our elections process for a number of years. And this year we have seen a vast number of violations and egregious types of misconduct in the elections officials around the state of California. Earlier in this process, midstream here last month, well, after the election they start counting for a whole month, and we had a lot of volunteers that were here. Some of them behind us here that have volunteered for many hours, coming to the registrar of voters to make sure that there was someone watching over what was going on. And that is a big help, just to have those people there watching the people inside doing what they're doing. However, midstream we found out that this election official here, his name is Michael Vu, San Diego registrar, was in violation of the law. I asked him about it, and he continued to want to violate that. It has to do with the audit, the 1% manual tally that is mandated by state law that they're supposed to do, and that they decided that they'd only do about 60% of it, and when even that part in a shoddy and difficult to monitor fashion. So in looking into that, we asked him why isn't he doing it right, and they continued to avoid us, and finally we had to file a lawsuit. In the middle of that lawsuit, we find out that most of the counties in the state are also in violation, and we had a injunction, a request for stopping the certification, and we didn't get that through in time due to just delays. So we're going to be continuing with that, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But basically, what we're up to now is we have a deadline on this election. We have a 5-day deadline for challenging the election itself. And as a voter, you have a right to challenge the election if you see egregious violations like this. I happen to have been the one who challenged this violation here in San Diego, which was against the law, and we're in a lawsuit about that. So that's number one. And there's many other things that we've heard about during this last election season, all across the map, making it difficult for voters to vote, making it hard to count the votes, making a lot of them get thrown out due to address problems. And we still don't know exactly how bad these problems are, but it looks like, all added up, it could swing the election the other way. If this election was conducted properly, we think that maybe Bernie Sanders would have won the presidential primary here in California. Now, we're not a partisan organization. We're not rooting for Bernie Sanders particularly, even though many of the people maybe have that in their mind. That's not the agenda. What we're trying to do is clean up the election process, and it wouldn't matter really who was running. We'd probably be here today even if it was two Republicans fighting it out and we saw the same kind of malarkey going on. Today we filed a contest to the election, and this contest is something that any voter can file. And what we did here was file this 6-page document which details at a high level what these issues are. And what that does is start the clock of about a month where we have to go through and get this process. It's a very quick process. And I am the voter in San Diego. But we also are going to be either have filed or will be filing this in 5 other counties. And that is, in addition to San Diego, we have LA, Riverside, Orange County, Imperial County, San Bernardino County, and what did I miss? Anyway, there are 6 counties, and pretty much all Southern California. Which one? Oh, Riverside? Okay. So all 6 counties in the Southern California, which is more than 50% of the vote in California. The reason we're not doing them all right now is because it's just too much work for us. We don't have enough staff and money to actually implement all of the districts. There's 58 counties. We're choosing the top dirty half dozen. And then we will be going on to the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and challenge the election statewide as soon as he actually certifies it. So without me going into much detail at this time, I'd like to introduce an attorney who is one of the attorneys who is carrying the ball on this for me on this contesting project. And I'd like to introduce now Dwana Simone Bain. Come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dwana Bain, and I have been working with Ray Lutz and several other people who may be challenging elections, as Mr. Lutz mentioned, and several other counties in the state of California. The particular lawsuit we are here to talk about this afternoon regards what is happening specifically in San Diego County. But let's not forget, this will be filed, a similar lawsuit will be filed in other counties in California. In this county, however, we are concerned with Michael Vu. So this lawsuit mentions as defendants Michael Vu and Hillary Clinton. Now, just to be clear, Hillary Clinton is only named because she is an indispensable party. We are not after Ms. Clinton specifically. We are after Michael Vu. Our concern is with Michael Vu and the way that this election was conducted. The reason that Hillary Clinton is named is only because she is the defendant as defined by the Elections Code. So, the position here is that if all the votes were counted, that were disqualified, not counted, misplaced, or lost, the election could swing to Bernie Sanders. We don't know that, and that is exactly what we are trying to find out. But there is information and belief that that could be the case. Right now, in particular in San Diego County, there are not a lot of votes separating Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. But there were a lot of ways that Michael Vu disqualified a lot of voters. And I personally am very concerned about what happened in this county. And for those of you who have any information about Michael Vu's history, I think you all should be very concerned too. And this lawsuit alleges that Michael Vu committed misconduct in conducting this election. Specifically, a lot of eligible voters were not able to vote. Their votes were cast aside by being put into provisional ballots and then not counted. We are very concerned specifically with the fact that a number of people who were no party preference voters were not even given an opportunity to vote at all for President of the United States of America. And to the extent that they tried to vote, either their write-in votes were specifically whited out, and we have several witnesses who are willing and able to testify to that fact, or their votes were put into provisional envelopes and they were later, for some illegal reason, disqualified. One concern in particular that affects a huge number of voters in this county are the students. As I understand it, based on interviewing a number of witnesses, just about every student who lives in a dorm room could have been disqualified. And that is because these students were put into provisional envelopes. I'm not entirely sure why their votes were put into provisional envelopes, but when they put their addresses on those envelopes, because it was summer session, they didn't have a dorm room. Therefore, those votes were disqualified because they were coming up as not registered. These are people who were registered voters who were coming up as not registered when the envelopes were put down. That is against the law. In California, you can be homeless and you can vote. So this is a problem, and this is a problem that potentially affects every single student that lives in a dorm room in San Diego County. That is a lot of votes that were disqualified. We want to find out just how widespread this is. I am also very concerned with the use of whiteout. We have witnesses who have seen presidential ballots whited out. We don't know why Michael Vu has offered many different excuses. We have seen this, or the witnesses rather, have seen this in more than one room at the county registrar's office. We want to get to the bottom of that and exactly how many Bernie Sanders votes were whited out. That is what this lawsuit aims to find out in discovery. We also want to find out if and how votes or ballots were shredded. So again, the no party preference voters were disqualified either by provisional ballots or by mail-in ballots that didn't give them the opportunity to vote for President of the United States. Or in this county, they were actually disqualified if they did not use the keywords Democratic crossover ballot. For example, if a no party preference voter walked in and said, "Hi, I'd like a Democratic ballot," apparently some poll workers decided to give them Democratic ballots instead of Democratic crossover ballots. That is not on the voter. That is a way to disqualify those voters. And Michael Vu knew about this. He knew about this happening. He used that as a way, through his poll workers, to disqualify these voters. We want to find out how many people that happened to and how many people were disqualified for that reason. And of course, this 1% tally that Mr. Lutz keeps talking about is a way to monitor this election. It's a way to find out if this election was even conducted in a proper way. What is the validity of any of these votes cast? Well, Michael Vu has been hiding. He has been evading the truth. We want to know the truth. I don't understand why Michael Vu is unwilling to let anybody know when, how, and why various votes were or were not counted, and how accurate those votes were. Why is he not allowing people to audit this process? Why is he not letting people conduct this tally the way that it's supposed to be conducted? We don't know. We don't know the answers to that, but we want to know, and we want to know who really won San Diego County and the other counties that are conducting elections the same way. I don't know if Mr. Lutz has anything else to add.
Sure, I'll go ahead and finish up.
Well, that's basically it. We are not specifically alleging that Bernie Sanders did win. We are saying Bernie Sanders may have won. We have reason to believe that Bernie Sanders may have won, and we're trying to get to the bottom of this. But we have a lot of reason to believe there was misconduct on the part of Michael Vu and other registrars in the state of California. And there are a lot of votes that were improperly discounted. And those votes belong to students and disabled people and people in the military. And those votes need to be counted. Let's find out where they are.
Thank you, Dewana. Now, let me just point out one of the really serious concerns we have and why we think this election is out of whack. This top yellow part here represents the ballots that came in on election night from the polls themselves. This is where you go up and physically vote. The next group are the ones that came in that were vote by mail ballots and that were processed before election night. The results in these two areas in the 1% tally are remarkably different. In the top part, those ballots that came directly from the precinct, Bernie Sanders won 58 to 41% in the 1% of the precincts tally. In those same exact precincts, in this section it was exactly flipped. Hillary Clinton won 58 to Bernie Sanders 41. Actually, I've never seen that happen before. Usually there's a little bit of difference between the ballots that came in from the precinct and the really early vote by mail ballots, but it's usually not flipped by more than 20% back and forth. So it is a real concern that we see, and our monitors here have seen a vast number of really strange occurrences. We had the shredding truck parked out in front here, apparently shredding material from the voters registration office. We hope it wasn't ballots. It wasn't ballots and other materials for this election, but who knows? We don't know, and they're not able to tell us what was in the truck. We have tried to tell them to secure it so that it wouldn't be just put in this hole over here that they're digging, and you probably hear in the background noise these trucks digging a hole for the ballots, perhaps. So we have a vast number of things going on and strange stories. But if you have your own story, if you're watching this and you did encounter difficulty voting, if you encountered having your vote somehow refused, or you found out that you sent it in and you had trouble, or any number of things, please let us know, because we'd like to make the vast list of all the problems so that we can get to the bottom of it. Statewide, there wasn't as much perhaps oversight at other districts as we had here, but some of them were doing a very good job, and some of them were able to get it reversed. But we know that in general we have a really big problem. This state is a mess, and this is a little tiny viewport into election system that is apparently as corrupt as it can be. But we'd like to prove that wrong. And you know what? If Hillary Clinton actually did win after we go through this contesting process, then that's fine. But we want to find out why it is that they went to such an effort to make it so difficult to vote, why their training was all off, why they're whiting out ballots, why they have shredding trucks. All of these things are piled up. Now I'd like to introduce one of our observers here and activists. Please welcome Maggie. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Maggie O'Neill. I was the Grassroots volunteer coordinator for the Bernie Sanders office in San Diego. And after the primary, I continued to help coordinate citizens to exercise their right as voters to come observe the ballot counting process. And we were barred access in pretty much any way imaginable. We were not allowed inside of those rooms where we are legally allowed to watch the ballots be counted. If you're doing everything above board, why won't you let us in to watch ballots be counted? I also want to reach out to the college students in San Diego or any no-party preference voters. Chances are your vote was whited out. Chances are your vote didn't count. In their personal opinion, you misvoted by not putting, maybe your dorm room number. That's entirely unacceptable. And if your vote wasn't counted, you should be angry, San Diego. I also want to reach out to all elected officials or candidates running for elected office. Where are you? Why aren't you here fighting with us? This should matter to all voters, Republicans, Democrats, everyone who votes. Where are our elected officials? This matters. This is on you too. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thanks, Ray Lutz.
Thank you. And it brings it up. Where is Alex Padilla? He is the guy that's supposed to be in charge of these election process. He's the Secretary of State. And where do we see him? At Hillary Clinton rallies, helping to fundraise for one of the candidates, which is, I think, should be against the law. I don't think the Secretary of State, the person involved that's supposed to be regulating our elections process, should also be fundraising and promoting one of the candidates. Because what it does mean then is that these election officials figure, oh, well, our boss likes one of the candidates. I guess we better start working the system so that his favorite wins, or we're going to be having a hard time with our boss. It's a bad system when your boss is putting pressure. You're the ones that are counting the votes, and he wants a certain candidate. It's wrong. Now, we had a lawsuit earlier, last week we had the hearing, and this lawsuit was to stop Michael Vu from certifying the vote here, and while conducting only a partial audit. And we put that before the judge, and we did not get a ruling in time. But I'd like to introduce the attorney that's handling that. He can give us an update on what's happening with that case. Alan Garassi, come on. Welcome. Thank you, Ray.
Good afternoon. Yes, we did have a hearing last week before Judge Wolfile in San Diego Superior Court. And unfortunately, the judge was extremely busy, engrossed in a 5-week trial, and couldn't get to our emergency hearing soon enough to do us any good for this past election. However, election integrity continues. The fight continues. And we're determined to get a ruling, if not an emergency ruling, we'll get a ruling after trial. The next step for us is to go see the judge and have dates set in the very near future, perhaps in September or October. I'd like to get that done before the next election, the general election, so that when votes are counted in November, that we are certain that every vote will be counted, and we are equally certain that all of these pieces of information that Mr. Lutz is addressing in this new lawsuit are addressed and evaporated from our system. So we're continuing with that lawsuit. The lawsuit involves the 1% manual audit. It is the check and balance that allows we voters to know that there is election integrity. California has that check and balance. We want it used, and we want it used properly. Thank you.
You know, a lot of people have wondered about this election. They said they thought it didn't turn out the way they thought it would. They saw huge rallies for Bernie Sanders, almost no rallies for Hillary. That sometimes happens when you're the favorite and you're the underdog. But it was a big deal, and the fact that we had this demonstrable difference, as I mentioned before, between the votes that came in from the precinct and those that were early votes. If you believe and you feel like this election was fixed or didn't come out right and something happened on the inside, then I want you to join with us. Come to the Citizens Oversight page, make sure you join it, make sure that you get into the conversation and you help us in other areas, and also, if you can, help us with our war chest that we're trying to build for further action. Now, I'd like to then ask a few others that have some tidbits of information about what they experienced. Who would like to say something? Josephine? I'd like to introduce Josephine. Come on up and say your...
Hi, I'm Josephine. I'm one of the people that volunteered to observe. And the part that was most troubling to me was to witness ballots being whited out, specifically presidential ballots. They were mostly American independents who were voting on a Democratic ballot, and none of these people are aware that their vote was whited out. They were not contacted, they were not advised, they came to vote, they were registered. Rightly or wrongly, they showed registered as American Independent. They requested a Democratic ballot. They were given a Democratic ballot on Election Day. These people voted for Bernie, and at the registrar's office, their vote was whited out. And none of these people know that their vote was whited out. Their vote did not count. I think that at a minimum, those people should be contacted to let them know their vote didn't count. The other part that was troubling was all the ballots that said, all the envelopes, pink envelopes, because those were the placebo flagged envelopes. There were many pink envelopes that we were told were not going to be open because their computer system shows them as not being registered. These people might have thought they were registered because when they showed up on Election Day, they asked for a ballot, they were given a ballot, and they voted. And it went and got put into a pink envelope, and it came to the registrar's office, and it says that they're not showing up in the system as being registered. So their vote did not count. And none of those people know that their vote didn't count. So those two were in particular the ones that were troubling to me. It's not transparent. People are not aware that their vote did not count.
I want to underline that point that Josephine just made. They have a system here where if you don't happen to vote in an election, then they kick you out of the system. When you register to vote, a lot of people think, well, when I'm registered for the rest of my life. I got registered. That's what happens when you go and get a driver's license. They don't invalidate it without telling you. In this system, if you don't happen to vote, you're kicked out of the system, and then when you come in to vote next time, they say you're not registered anymore. Guess what? Now you're provisional, you're not even registered, you can't vote. And they have the deadline for registration before the election, so you can't become registered at the spot. So they've got a system that kicks people out really, really easily and makes it really hard to get back in, and you can't do it on election day. It's a crime. And that's one of the things we're going to be working on. Now, come on up.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Pride. I am here from Minnesota to assist with the ballot issues. I'd like to bring up 3 points. Going back to what Josephine said earlier, a lot of people who are registered as American Independent voted and their votes were not counted. The thing is, American Independent does not mean unaffiliated. It is an actual party and it disqualifies you from voting Democrat. So you definitely want to check your affiliation, and if you are American Independent, then your vote most likely did not count, and you want to check that. And the second point I want to bring up, it's very easy to go on Google. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. There's no way to tell if your vote was counted. It's very deceiving. All you can know is that the register of voters received your ballot, and that's it. It is in no way an assurance that your vote was counted. Sorry, that was just a little note.
Thanks for the clarification. Online there was, there's conflicting information being passed around. I apologize for that. I'm going to step back for a second and look on.
Okay, one thing that concerns me as a lawyer is that observers are reporting that Michael Vu or some person who works for the registrar's office is saying, well, it's okay to white out a ballot because that person was an independent or an American independent or a Republican voting on a Democratic ballot. I'm confused as to why it's okay to white out a ballot, because that ballot, as far as I'm aware, is supposed to be kept as it is for whatever reason that person, wrongly or rightly, voted on that ballot. Because what if that ballot becomes the subject of an election contest or some other type of legal challenge and someone needs to look at that ballot? And we don't know right now if those ballots were altered or tampered with for a specific reason or not. But I can't think of a reason why it's okay. But let's just say hypothetically a Republican decided to vote on a Democratic ballot. In my opinion, it is not okay to white out the name of Bernie Sanders or any other candidate, because that is altering a ballot. That ballot should be kept intact. That voter should know that that voter's vote did not count. Because, as I think we're all aware, for example, in Riverside County, some people's votes were definitely tampered with. Voter registration was tampered with. That is what the Riverside County District Attorney is saying. So some people were registered as Democrat and their votes were switched to Republican. So their voter registration was switched to Republican. So they might have gone in on election day and said, wait a minute, I am a Democrat. Give me a Democratic ballot. So those people think they are Democrats. So they voted on a Democratic ballot. Those ballots should be preserved as is.
Question. Okay. Is a ballot a legal document?
Well,
It is our position the ballot should be preserved as is.
yeah. When you tell people about this whiting out process, that the officials here in San Diego are altering the ballots using whiteout to change them before they're run through the scanners, no one else can believe this. They just basically lose a breath of air. They can't even speak for a while. This is something that is really, really a surprising thing that this official is doing. I understand the only other official that ever did this that we know of is one from Cuyahoga County, Ohio, back in 2004. Oh, that's right. That was Michael Vu, too. And he did the same thing back there and altered the ballots. Okay, the same guy here. All right, now, I think we probably have covered most of the details, but is there other people who would like to say? Oh, okay. All right, come on up here, Daniel, and make some comments. Daniel Beeman's been with the Integrity Project for a number of years.
Yes, what really concerns me as a former candidate of here in San Diego County is I'm concerned that when my people that were interested in voting for me, that their vote might not go through. This is very concerning for me. When I was a candidate, I worked very, very hard to get votes and to represent the people. That's why I ran as a candidate. When I hear that their votes might not be counted, as a candidate, it's really disturbing. It takes a lot of shoe leather, it takes some money, and it takes a lot of volunteers to run a campaign. And when you suggest that citizens' votes are not counting, there's a major problem. Now, whenever I go to a store and I buy something, they give me a receipt. That receipt says what I purchased and where I purchased it and when I purchased it. So they have a full tally of what I've done. The store has a tally and I have a tally. Why we can't have something like that in the voting system, to me, seems really ridiculous. If every merchandiser can have this, every sales store can have this, we should be able to have something. And we need to verify that our votes were taken, that they were accounted for accurately, and that we are of worth and value. This whiting out is not showing value to the voters. And this is a main problem. We have people not voting any longer. They do not trust the system, so they don't participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, here's the good side. In this county, we do have ballots that do record what the voter said, and they're whiting them out. In other counties like Orange County, they're still using the electronic machines, and they can just alter those at will. And there's no trail or anything. There's no whiteout required. You just say delete, and it's gone. So I would like to send a message here to everybody viewing. Let's all together count every vote. 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 Okay. Oh, good. We all almost landed on time. Okay. I think I want to thank everybody, the media that came. Oh, you want to add one more thing? Come on up, Alex.
To clarify on what I said earlier, under the Federal Help America Vote Act of 2002, every voter who casts a provisional ballot is entitled to find out whether his or her county elections official, to find out from them whether the ballot was counted, and if not, why it was not counted. So if you have reason to believe that you had a provisional ballot, check on that.
And just to reiterate, what Mr. Lutz is doing will be done in other counties in the state of California. Thank you.